anyway, Phil came to me and he said, look, here's what's happening. You're getting hit. I asked him, I said, so who are they? He said, it doesn't matter who they are. He says, there's all kinds of interests, whether they're governments or elites or corporations, and this is just routine business for them. This is what they're going to do. And the next step was, he said, you know, you've got to start tracking it down, see who's hitting you, but most importantly, don't take it personally. It's like they say in the movies, it's just business. And that's what you have to do. You don't take it personally like Dutch did. You just simply say, hey, this is the life I chose. I decided to do this. I decided to have a radio show, or I decided to have a YouTube channel, and I decided to tell truth. Well, there are people that don't want you to do that. People have secrets. And a lot of times those are very ugly secrets and very sinister secrets. And you don't know when you're inadvertently going to step on one of them like a landmine. And then boom. So knowing who they are is pointless. You're dealing with their contractors, their minions, whoever they have hired to go out and slam you and destroy you so as to shut you up. And you're not going to understand who they are, and you probably never will. But you can deal with the behaviors of the people that are hitting on you. That is the pure genius of what Sweeney wrote. This was something else, someone else who understood what was happening to me, sent me the information. When I read these two articles, after about 6 months, about 4 months of really getting kicked in the tatas, I was sitting there going, my God, yeah, they did that, they did that, they did that, they did the other thing, they did this other thing, and it's like all the dots are connecting. And what Philip told me, my guest, and he said, look, you're dealing with people who personality-wise are, their personalities are pretty much like petty retail clerks, all right? And they can be really vicious and short-sighted and mean with you. But in the final analysis, it's business for them. There's nothing personal. This is how they pay their child support, all right? So they went in and they really, really clobbered him. But I used the disinformation playbook with great success. And for those of you who are following Dutch, one thing I never do is I allow comments on my videos, because initially, you know, if you're moderating, it's a lot of work to do it. But after a while, it's just forget it. Just forget the comments, because that's where the disinformation pukes like to hit you. But there's another one in there, another link. And first off, you read that, the disinformation playbook. And anyone who reads that and then you look and see what's happening to Dutch and how Dutch is responding to it is going to be amazingly clear to you as to what's really going on. Now, there's another link there, 100th Monkey. Now, this is something that is a response to anybody goes, well, how can we make a difference? There's not enough of us. Not so. If you read the 100th Monkey, critical mass is a low number thing. You know, earlier when we did our little calculations, what was it, Bill? What was his core audience?
About 980,000 people.
Okay, 980,000 people. Do you think out of 980,000 people, 98 people would give a damn and go to bat for the guy?
I would certainly hope so.
So would I. Even if it's only a fourth of that, is a huge force to be dealt with. And so when you reach out to your audience, the people that like your work, what you do is you think about getting that 100th monkey. Not about building an army of 10,000 people to right the wrongs. What you need is a 100th monkey, and you're shooting for that. It makes a huge difference. And I can tell you, when all is said and done, you can deal with it. Now, is there a situation where you can use these techniques to keep moving forward and reporting your work truthfully and never be bothered by the disinformation pukes? No, they're like cockroaches. They do their best work at night. They like filth, and they'll be around long after we're gone. You just can't kill them all. So don't bother with it. Again, don't take it personal. Just accept the fact This is how it is. This is the life. And so if Dutch had been looking to the people that support him, and I'm talking about all the folks that are just on his channel, all right, and reaching out to them and saying, I need your help. If you want this information, you need to help me. He's not doing that. Big mistake. If you were doing that, shooting for the 100th monkey, and then going out and just giving a link to Sweeney's articles, and then he can turn it around. And I'll tell you, a real effective tool is you turn yourself into a tar baby. So for those of you out there running a YouTube channel, how do you become a YouTube tar baby? Well, what you do is that you create awareness of what these people are actually doing, these disinformation operatives. You use Sweeney's articles, you put up videos, you put up audios, and then you inoculate yourself. Because now you're a harder target to hit. If they are going to go, you know, it's the old, you know, kids in a schoolyard thing, you know, and oh, Billy's going to get an ass whooping, the bully's going to get him. Everyone's got to go see Billy get an ass whooping. All right? Well, if Billy is getting an ass whooping, at the same time, everyone is understanding who the bully really is and how much of a schmuck he is, it doesn't work too good for the bully. It's kind of counterproductive. It's much better when the guy who's getting picked on is doing like Dutch is, oh, please, can we all just get along and love one another and have a good time and just get over this and go beyond? No, what does the bully do? Pow! In the face. That's it. You're down. It's the count, and everyone's going, hey, you know, you shouldn't have begged the bully. So you don't do that. You don't beg. You get out with your friends. You build a counterforce, and you accept the fact that it's not going to go away. All right? Disinformation cockroaches are like urinary tract infections. Once you've had your first one, it's much easier to get them after that. Ask anyone who's ever had one. So that's the point here, folks. For those of you out there that want to try and help this guy, because I'll tell you what, if he doesn't get some help, if some of the people following his work don't get off their tuchus with this I'm not involved nonsense, and they go, hey, this is my planet too, I got a right to know, and I'm going to go take it to these schmoes. Then what you're doing is you're haunting his videos, looking in the comments, and you're taking and responding to these schmucks using the exact tactics that Sweeney puts in those articles. And so those links are up there. And I'll tell you, folks, if you want the information Dutch is doing, or anyone else like Dutch is doing, and it's important enough for you to have this access to the information. And when you see these sources of information being targeted the way Dutch is being targeted, you have to decide, are you going to make a difference or aren't you? And that, to me, is the bottom line. Bill, you got any last thoughts on it?
Not really, Marshall. I think you've covered just about everything. I think you've done a fine job of telling people what's going on. And I'll just say that we really need to get in there and we really need to support Dutch because he's giving us some extremely valuable information.
That's right. So
I don't know what it is about the guy or how he figures out what he does, but he's a natural at doing it, and I hate to see the guy destroyed like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's got a heck of a nose for the news. A heck of a nose for the news.
He does it, man.
And he brings a good energy. I like his reporting. He's just dealing with nasty people he's never come across before, and man, he's tucking tail and running. So with that, again, folks, it's on yowza.com, YOWUSA.com. All you have to do is search for the article, the Disinformation Playbook, and to search for the article, The 100th Monkey. And for those of you that want to make a difference, read it, and then just go do your thing alone. Or better yet, get together with some other folks and tag team those disinfo pukes. You can really, really mess them up so easily if you do. Now, with that, let's get into the latest and breaking news on Common Elenin, Planet X, and other topics. And for that, let's bring Ed in.
Hello.
Hey, Ed. Well, thanks for hanging through that 40 minutes.
Well, let me say I enjoy Dutch's work. He does good work.
He does. He does. You know, and it was really, you know, he promised he'd be on the show tonight, and course, once I saw him getting hammered and the way he was responding to it, I knew that he was going to run from that too. So yeah, it would have been nice if Dutch had just simply sent us an email saying I'm canceling, but he didn't. He's just off in his shell. But you're right. The work is excellent. Excellent. And I particularly liked the reporting he was doing on Pisca Crater and also that trench that's off of Puerto Rico. I've been following that ever since, and that thing is really, really active. So with that in mind, Ed, we've had a change of state on Comet Elenin that was not being discussed earlier on. I mean, I can't even remember from before, where now it is brightened, and as I recall, well, the last thing I read on it, I think the coma now is the size of the planet Jupiter, right?
It looks big.
That's good. I love it, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, it's caught me by surprise because I was sort of coming out with some theorization, and next thing I know, it's doing what I said it might do. And I didn't really want it to do that. I am disappointed in NASA. Surprise, surprise. I thought we were promised some pictures, but it doesn't seem like we're getting the good stuff. We're getting the cardboard camera stuff.
Okay.
And it's hard to work with that, but yeah, let's just say it has brightened dramatically. It has enlarged dramatically. It's showing every sign of following just what Comet Holmes did. Yeah. And it's very possible that we are looking at our future probably blue Kachina.
I think so. One of the things that really surprised me is NOAA came out, and they posted warnings of that we could have in 2012, 2013 during the solar maximum, that we could have solar events so violent that it takes down power grids for months at a time. And I thought that was really interesting to see NOAA finally come out and say something like that. Did you notice it?
Yes. I sort of see through that, though.
Ah, all right. Well, what do you? That's an interesting comment.
Well, when they come out and tell you that, but they say it's 2012, 2013. Mm-hmm. I always have found that in the past, when they've come out and said something, it's really not that far out in the future. We might be entering the possibility of that happening here very soon with this comet, especially as it nears perihelion.
So in other words, well, I mean, we already have a couple of major storms this week, and we're waiting to see how that's going to play out. I know a lot of folks are wondering, what the effect of that is going to be seismically. And,
well, we've had a large M-class flare and an X-class flare, solar flare, here in the last day. Mm-hmm. Several CMEs. The sun is not as active as we might think, but when it does something, it makes it count. Yeah. And it's not like a constant action coming from the sun. It's like it's charging up and then wham, letting us have it, which unfortunately is what I think possibly this comet is doing.
Okay. Well, I know in the last show we talked about your comet capacitance theory, and I remember some of the emails I got from that show, and they were going, well, you're blowing it out your backside and wah, 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 and all that. And then days later, bada boom, you were right on the money, and the cranks were not. So give us a good, break it down for the folks out there, what this comet capacitance theory is, so that they can understand what this means to them.
Okay. Well, right off the bat, a capacitor is something we use in electronics. It is meant to store electricity. It's used in many different ways for different applications, but in all cases it does store energy, and until something comes along for it to discharge that energy on. What we're sort of seeing right now is it's been on a 10 or 11,000 year orbit,
right.
Which is one heck of a long time for it to charge up. I've seen some calculations and this and that on how fast it was going, how many particles it would come past, how it would form the electrical charge, but let's just say it's charged up a lot.
Okay.
And then if you look around right now, even I've noticed just a small. I've been watching the LASCO satellites on SOHO for so long that you notice if one hair is out of place. And lately it's, how you say, the sky's been dirty. There seems to be a lot of junk in the sky, in space right now. It'd be like someone stirred up dust off the floor and you're in a room that has no air in it, you know, and the dust is just sort of spreading everywhere. Well, let's just say maybe that dust can conduct electricity. So we're setting a stage for a big discharge. We're giving it the ability, and it may not even wait until perihelion. It may be able to discharge with the sun before it gets that close, due to the particles in the outer space right now.
Are you talking between now and, you know, I remember we had a timeline, and the timeline was started with 9/11 of this year.
Right.
And
that's perihelion. Yeah.
That's perihelion, and I believe it's also when it crosses the ecliptic, correct?
Exactly.
All right. That
what an opportune time for it to happen.
Now, are you now revising your previous estimate that we could actually start seeing something happen even before 9/11?
I will say the possibility is there.
Okay.
Electricity is a funny animal. It'll jump as far as the environment will let it. I've worked on some high voltage items in the past and this and that, and you hated to see a very humid day come along, because humidity will make that electricity jump out farther to bite you, and you had to be more careful. So if we're seeing more particles excited and such in space, that's almost like raising the humidity level of space. So let's just say it used to take 1,000 volts to jump 1 inch of a spark to get you. With humidity, that might drop down to, say, 5/8 of an inch. So now we were talking about perihelion with the comet bringing it close enough to the sun, and then it would possibly discharge at that time. With all the particles and what I'm calling humidity in space, it's very entirely possible that we might see it discharge on us before it gets there, before the September 11th date.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, could this be something where it starts a series of discharges building up to something big? In other words, you know, it's almost like, well, what comes to my mind is a lawnmower, you know, old lawnmower. You pull it and it starts with a pump, 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 and then it catches, and that's it. You know, boom, you're going after the tall weeds. Are we looking at something that could just start popping off a little bit, or does it just start with a bang?
No, it could pop a little bit. Say it's holding a certain charge that is able to jump a certain distance. Let's say it's got a negative charge, the sun has a positive charge. How much difference there is between those two would decide just how far the electricity could jump. It could discharge. If it got close enough that it could cover that gap and discharge, it would discharge down to the level where it wasn't able to make that jump. So then it would wait until it gets a little closer to the sun, and it would jump again.
Okay.
And then a little closer to the sun and jump again until perihelion. And perihelion, by then we had either had a bunch of discharges or we've had one lulu of a discharge. And either way, not good.
Now, the question here is, could it trigger multiple Lulus, as you call them, a big event?
I don't know, because I don't know how charged it is. The indications from the infrared signature it had on the sky programs would indicate, yeah, it's capable of several. That's why I say it might go ahead and discharge way before it gets near perihelion. And that's going to, we're talking a major event. I mean, we sit here and we have a thunderstorm come by and we see a few bolts of lightning, and even those can be scary. Well, if you imagine a lightning bolt maybe as big around as the moon going between the sun and that comet, and you're talking, you know, over maybe 45 million miles, that's a pretty big spark, and that's going to throw out some magnetic reaction also.
Well, let's do a comparison then back to Comet Holmes and 2007, and because at one, you know, Comet Holmes came in, and it, you know, this thing orbited around beyond the orbit of Mars in the asteroid belt, so it was at a very comfortable distance. But even at that distance, the coma became as large as the diameter of the sun, and for a few hours it was the brightest thing in the sky. However, with Comet Elenin, we're not talking about an object that is passing at a comfortable distance out, you know, beyond the orbit of Mars. We're talking about something that's passing between us and Venus.
Yes.
All right.
And it seems to be so similar to Comet Holmes, except it's got a different orbit.
In what ways is it similar?
Well, Comet Holmes had the unique, how you say, feature. It didn't really have much of a tail. And we're really not seeing much of a tail on this comet. And Comet Holmes had that, how you say, explosion of brightness and size. And we've seen on a minor scale, a smaller scale, but still pretty drastic, this comet has done the same thing. The only difference being that Comet Holmes only got close enough to the sun for it to be electrically tickled a little bit. But looks like Comet Elenin is going to come right on in and do the big whammy.
Yeah.
There's too many similarities. And especially when we saw it inflate and brighten in one day, and oh no, here we go. Another Comet Holmes, except this one's coming into the inner solar system.
That's right. So it's no longer, as NASA said, a wimpy comet, right?
It might look like one, well, or it might have looked like one, I should say.
Yeah, there it is. Past tense, have looked like one.
Yeah, I don't think they'd say that any longer.
No, I don't think that they would either. You know, I mean, this was something that, boom, it was like, you know, a Comet Holmes kind of a thing. I mean, I remember going back through Comet Holmes and researching back through my notes and links that I had that were still active, and it was, you know, the outburst was something that just wasn't seen. And it was, you know, again, you know, one of those things where they were just saying, well, it's not a particularly interesting comet. You know, it's small, it's way out there, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's dominating the night sky. You know, what was interesting for me was that there was a third-party attribution to the Mayan elders saying that this is the blue Kachina of Hopi prophecy. And we've explained it before, but for those that are new to the concept of the blue Kachina prophecy, there are two very, very well discussed Hopi prophecies that are very old, and one is dealing with signs of the time. I believe there's 9 of them, which have all come to pass. But then there, with the exception of the last, which is they're still waiting to see if, you know, if there's a vehicle or maybe the International Space Station has, you know, an emergency deorbiting because it's just getting slammed with all kinds of stuff. But the other one is the blue Kachina, And there's also a third ceremony that we have followed for years that's not well discussed. And it's one that is a very secret ceremony. And they actually build a small hut for it, and with very special kind of viewing port. They're looking for celestial alignments. Specifically, they're looking at Venus. I mean, you know, the ancients were always using Venus as a harbinger sign. You know, as Venus goes, so goes our planet. And it was something where they were looking for a period of time where Venus would do a double retrograde, and do that in a certain part of the sky. And that event is actually going to happen in 2012. The blue star Kachina is, the way the prophecy goes, the Hopi tells us that we have two Kachinas, they're gods. One comes first, and it's really the blue Kachina is the harbinger. And it's going to scare us, it's going to hurt us somewhat. And at that point, people are going to realize that life as we know it is drawing to an end. And that then entails a matter of people rethinking things, you know, seeking redemption, really, trying to get good with the Creator. I mean, they're afraid. They're feeling their mortality. That's what the blue star Kachina is going to do. So when, you know, the Mayan elders, who it wasn't even directly through them, it was through someone else who was just out there writing some articles and claimed to have had that information given to him, it never connected with me with Comet Holmes, because while Comet Holmes certainly was a huge surprise, and for a small period of time was the brightest object in the night sky, even brighter than our own sun, still the same. I mean, there was no earth-shaking awareness that resulted from Comet Holmes, none. So that's what the blue Kachina does. It's going to just scare the living daylights out of us. Then, on the tail of the blue Kachina, perhaps a year afterwards, comes the red Kachina. And when the red Kachina comes, that's when we have the real serious hurt, all right, which in this case we believe is Planet X. So what we're going to do here is we're at the top of the hour. We're going to take our little usual quick break here, and music break, so you guys can go let out the cat and put on the tea. And while we were at the break and listening to Besame Mucho, Ed was kind of going, well, I've got some information that it's going to be really hard for people to hear. And do you think it's okay, guys? You know, it's like, well, that's what the show's about. So, Ed, what's the bad news?
Well, the tie-in, before I forget it, was about one of the Hopi prophecies was the place in the heavens falling to earth, dwelling place in the heavens, which almost automatically points to the International Space Station.
Right.
If
and
we
by
have
the
this,
way, you know, we
yes.
did have an incident not too long ago that they were actually jumping into the Soyuz escape capsules because there was an old Chinese booster that flew within 800 feet of the station, and they were pretty worried.
And I have a feeling they're going to be staying pretty close to that, getting wanting to get near it as this comet gets closer.
Okay.
Well, the first thing we'll define is when it arcs. I don't know if anybody's watched somebody arc weld or seen electrical sparks. What they're sort of in the ultraviolet spectrum, and it looks blue.
Okay.
Well, you don't want to look at it for long, but it looks blue.
Right.
So we will establish that blue is a color.
You know, and it's consistent with the concept of that term, unmasking.
Right.
Because, I mean, you think about it, unmasking, it's a sudden reveal. And
it'll be sudden.
Yeah, it'll be really sudden. Ed, before we get any further into this, I got a couple of good questions in from the chat room. And we've got Susan in the chat room, and she's our chat room moderator and does a wonderful job for it. And most particularly, she helps point out really good questions from those of you in the chat room. We got two of them. The first one is from Ninja Pins. That's an interesting name. It goes, What's a ninja pin? So from he's got 30 million miles away, little Elenin is going to fry us, question mark.
Well, it'll actually get a little closer to us than 30 million.
Okay.
It'll come in around 18 to 22 million miles when it's directly between us and the sun.
Okay. So
which is not a good place.
It's not a good place. Now, we're not worried about little Elenin doing the frying. We're talking about the sun interacting with little Elenin.
Exactly.
Right. So, I mean, that's a key point that you got to remember there, Ninja Pins. It's where, who the big bad boy is on, the bully on the block, so to speak, and it's our beloved sun.
If you throw a bucket of water onto a transformer and you get shocked halfway to death, you can't blame the water.
Have you ever
tried the transformer that did it. I came close a few times in my electrical career.
All right, cool.
It would appear that way.
All right. And we have another one here, a good question from P90X. With the sun having all this extra activity, why do they have solar sats looking at something that is wimpy? Ooh, P90X. Awesome question, dude.
Oh, it's almost more of a statement.
Yeah.
It's a statement by NASA, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why are they paying so much attention and rolling that satellite 135 degrees for 2 hours every day just to look at a wimpy little comet?
Yeah.
I think that one sort of answers itself.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, it's you've got
great question.
Soho, you've got Soho and Stereo B, and so they've got two birds on this thing, and the question is I mean, I think the last show, are we going to see what they're seeing? I don't think we will.
No, we're not seeing what they're seeing.
But I mean, it's very, very clear that that's what they're after. So with that, let's get back into where we were before.
Okay. Well, at the point when there's a discharge, we already established it'll probably be the colored blue. That's if this doggone thing doesn't swell up and turn blue before then, like Holmes did.
Holmes, Holmes was it was a beautiful shade of blue.
Now it just makes you wonder what was going on inside of all that blue.
Yeah.
And that's another possibility that we might, if this comet were to do the same thing, when it's between us and the sun, it would possibly envelop the Earth with the blue, how would you say, sphere.
The coma? Well,
yes.
If the coma, it's not like you're flying into something solid.
No, but it would have a lot of particles.
All right.
And these particles might electrically possibly even knock a space station out of the sky.
How would it do that?
Oh, electromagnetically for one. For two, now they do all kinds of things to these birds up there, satellites and such, protecting them against almost anything that comes. But if you get something, I can't even imagine how high the voltage and current would be in a situation like that. That I can guarantee you that space station isn't protected from it. Not on a direct hit.
Okay.
Even the magnetic field that could possibly develop as there is a discharge, say even when it's at perihelion, it's still going to be 60 million miles from us when it does that. It might put off enough of an electromagnetic pulse. Gee, there we go, EMP. Could knock the space station out of the sky along with about every other satellite that's up there. And it wouldn't do our electrical grids any good at all on this planet.
Yeah.
Hope you have some firewood stored up. It's a lot of things can happen if we have this big discharge.
Well, with that in mind, we have Susan tossed us a question from the virtual chat room from user Milton Torres. And he's asking, bottom line, when is it time to run to the hills?
Boy, as usual, I hate to put my neck out on the line Let's
Okay,
just say
all right.
it might be a good idea to take vacation, maybe like a week before and a week after September 11th.
Wow. So that's really a good time to, or at least be in a situation where you're in a more survivable situation.
Yes, and truthfully, the most survivable situation has been talked about before, and I have to admit now, with all of this possibility, underground. You're going to have to be protected underground. Okay.
Well, I mean, that goes to, now we got another question in from Ninja Pins, and he's going, yeah, radio, what is the claim? Elenin is going to electrocute us or a big solar flare?
All of the above? I don't think it'll electrocute us. If it were to discharge, that discharge would be so bright and so sudden. If you could imagine the sun turning that bright white blue, the amount of photons and protons that thing is going to throw off, it could virtually, it'd be like hitting the Earth with a big laser.
Okay.
And I don't think I have to explain what it would do. Yeah,
I mean, the brightness, the flare, that's going to be it. The questions then, in my mind, are the resulting seismicity and volcanism and also weather, storms, tsunamis, typhoons, that kind of thing. What would you see there? Is this something that is going to be a big, scary light show with a lot of meteorites, or is this going to generate enough energy, throw it at the Earth, that we're going to see some real seismic and volcanic action? And, I will preface that question by saying I am following, on Quake 3D, and there's a free and a paid version, folks. You can find them on the web. Great little piece program. Get the free one. It's great for what most people do. For me as a researcher, I like the extra options of the paid version. And I am looking at all of the seismicity, and we're seeing every day, 6.0 and above, and some days 2 or more. That's not what I recall from years back. Yeah, we had 6.0s years back, but we weren't having them pop 1 or 2 a day. Do you remember that much activity?
Oh, it's escalated just right along. And now I see where even the 5s are starting to be more effective, I guess would be the way to say, for an earthquake. They're causing more damage, even at 5.2 or whatever. They're shaking the heck out of stuff and bringing down buildings and hurting people, which is what the 7s were doing here a while back.
So you're also seeing that the quakes are actually creating more damage than would before. Now, I mean, that is, like they say in real estate, location, location, location. Is it something where we're seeing more damage from these 6.0s than we normally would see before, because they're just hitting in areas where, normally they wouldn't have a 6.0, and their building codes are not set up like they are in Chile. I mean, Chile has incredible building codes. I knew a lady that actually, it was like 50 years ago. It was a long time back, several decades. Chile had a massive, massive quake. And she was a young girl when it happened, and her parents had a home way up high on the mountain overlooking the sea. And she remembered standing there after the quake and watching the water rush out for miles. And she just saw all this exposed seabed with, there's all these old boats and everything are laying on the bottom and fish flopping around. And then she saw the tsunami come in and just really devastate the front. So she was through it. She had that kind of experience. But today, that recent big quake that hit Chile, in other places, would have been devastating. But in Chile, it wasn't that bad, and the areas that were affected were the ones that were pre-building codes. So back to the question, is the severity something that is, we're seeing the same kind of effect, but either is it because the quakes are more shallow, or they're hitting in areas where they don't have building codes?
Actually, maybe possibly a little bit of both. because if you look where a lot of the damage is happening, it's in the areas that they don't have the codes like Chile does. But also, though, the depth and, geez, wherever possibly on the fault lines these quakes are happening, all has, how you say, effects on it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, tell us about the effects. What you're seeing.
Well, we're seeing to the point where I'm even noticing on the news, this is what really shocks me, is they're talking in the news about the 5.2s and the 5.4s right now and the damage they're causing. And 6 months ago, they didn't even put the 7.0s on the screen. And I'm wondering why all of a sudden they're noticing. And then also our question, why are they being more violent? One possibility I can just throw out there, I'm not a geologist, but we are seeing an increase in volcanic activity also.
Yeah,
and
I mean, there's
perhaps this is
lot
combining
of volcanism.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting. You know, one of the things, I mean, I checked Drudge Report because Drudge really likes to, I mean, he does a good job of covering this stuff. He picks up on these volcanic eruptions, quakes. I mean, he's really sensitive to these earth change topics. Have you found that?
Oh, I haven't been alive but 60 years, but I've never seen quake activity like it is and has been. And they recently even came out and put the whole, what would you say, Indonesia, the fault line through Indonesia there in the Rim of Fire. They put the whole fault line there through Indonesia on volcano alert status, which is unprecedented.
Overall, are you seeing a change in the depth of the quakes?
That's hard to say. We've noticed a correlation, and even the scientists came up with a formula. There's a correlation between solar activity and earthquake and volcanic activity on the planet. I've noticed recently we've had a little bit more X-ray type activity from the sun, and instead of seeing bigger quakes, we're just seeing more quakes. And yeah, the numbers have increased, but not the size. Whereas when we see lots of CMEs and geomagnetic activity, and the K index is real high, and this and that, and solar wind, we relate that right to the big quakes. That's when we're seeing our sevens and above. I'm not sure if I'm really qualified to make an absolute connection. But I know all of those, the depth, the location, the volcanic activity, I know they all play together.
Right. It does all play together. I mean, things that I notice when I'm watching the news report, I mean, it's how they're reporting them. There's a tremendous amount of stuff that's happening that they just will not, you know, they won't address it, or if they do, I mean, they just blow right through it and move on to the next piece of yellow journalism. But, you know, they have stopped with this nonsense of saying, well, it's not that there's more quakes, it's just that we're better at detecting them. They're not saying that nonsense anymore.
I think we all had a pretty good laugh with that one.
Yeah, I think we do. We've got a caller and with a question, so let me bring caller. Carolina?
North Carolina.
You are on the air.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Well, I have a kind of silly question, but I must ask. I have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go in 5 days cruise to Bahama, and this it's going to happen right on the time where we just talked about, September the 26th. And the other persons that are going in this trip, they don't believe me.
Oh, God. Oh, boy.
No one believes me, and
go on it and have a great time.
Yeah, have a great time. Don't talk about it, but, you know...
what's going to happen is going to happen, and unless we're all down in a cave somewhere, it'll happen so fast we wouldn't even know it anyway.
That's right. But, you know, Carolina, it depends on, you know, when it happens and where, all right? But you're going to be on a ship, you're going to be at sea. You know, that's really, if something's going to happen, that's when you really want it to happen, is when the ship's in the sea, all right?
Interesting.
But when you're, you know, how many port calls are you making?
It's just Bahamas. It's 5 days on Bahamas.
Okay. So you're going to be island hopping around in that area?
Yes.
All right.
I always want to go swimming with the dolphins.
Oh, yeah.
And this will be a great way to leave the planet, isn't it? Swimming with the dolphins.
Absolutely.
In the Bahamas. If it comes to that, I mean, what else I can ask for it? It will be.
I agree.
And I had dreams about before, literally all my life, that I see this enormous wave coming towards me, and I'm there in the water. And now this opportunity arrives. Interesting, huh?
It is. When you get on the ship, a couple of suggestions, and I'm going to give you that, but then I want to ask you more about your dreams. This is something I'm always fascinated in, and because people report their dreams and visions to me all the time, Carolina, and the one thing I always want to do first, you know, is just to let them know they're not alone, because they really, you know, like you were saying when you came on, and, you know, no one wants to listen to you. You know, they all got their hands over their ears going, la, 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 la. Remember that scene from Eddie Murphy movie? And, you know, they're going to do that. First thing I would suggest to you is this, before you go on the holiday. Have you seen my video, 5 Stages of Catastrophism?
No.
Okay.
But I would love to.
All right. It's on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/yowbooks, YOWBOOKS. And that's the first video right up there. And the 5 stages of catastrophism are going to explain to you where you are in relationship to everybody else and how they're coming along. Because if there is an incident, something does happen, and it scares everybody, the people that are laughing at you and mocking you right now are going to be the first ones. Guess what they're going to do after it all happens? Who are they going to go to?
Rose, I hope. They're going to come towards me, asking me for what to do.
And they're going to be asking. That's right. And so the first thing you do, Rose, is, you know, when you get on the ship and you get packed into your stateroom, get settled in, and one question is, are you above or below the water line? In your
above
stateroom?
The water.
Okay.
Top.
How many levels up above the water line?
I think it's 11.
Okay. So the first thing you want to do is, you know, it's the same thing as if you're on an airplane. And when I get into an airplane, the very first thing I do once everything gets settled down is I start counting the seat rows between me and the exits, forwards, backwards. All right, to every exit that, you know, whichever ones are closest to me. And that's really important if you know how many rows of seats are there. And they have, you know, strip lighting, but the best thing is to do that, because you've got to get down on your knees to get underneath the smoke and get out of the aircraft. But it's also, you know, knowing where, you know, how to operate the doors. In other words, what you're doing while everybody else is sitting there eating peanuts and listening to, you know, whatever on the headphones, you're sitting there saying, if there's a problem, I know exactly which way to go. I'm 5 forward, 8 back, whatever it is, and you've got yourself organized. So when you get in the ship, you know, one of the first things you're going to do when they leave port is you're going to have a lifeboat drill, right?
Right.
All right. Lifeboat drill is really, really important, you know, and a lot of people, I've taken cruises, and they're a lot of fun, and folks will get out there, and they're not really paying attention. They'll do it, you know, they go to their station, and they're talking or whispering or looking around and not paying attention. No, you take it all in.
Eating around.
That's right. And then after they do that boat drill, okay, before the day's out, you do the boat drill yourself 2 or 3 times. You don't have to have the vest on, but you walk from your stateroom to the boat, and you count your steps. All right?
Okay.
So, you know...
And try not to spill your drink.
That's right.
Oh.
That's right. Especially if it's an unblended scotch. And
so I'll be okay.
there you go. So, you know, you're out, you count, okay, you know, you get out of your stateroom, you turn to the right, you go down. One of the things is that, you know, with the ships, they have elevators. Well, elevators may not be operational. So you need to know, you know, how to get to the station without an, so you have these alternate paths. You maybe have 2 or 3 different alternate paths that you know about to get to that station. Another thing that you do is when you take your trip, have a little go back. You know, something that if it happens while you're in the room, you can, you've packed some extra stuff so that you just
bottled water and
bottled water, change of underwear, you know, those kinds of things. Whatever you think is going to be important.
I'm not sure I'm going to be concerned about my underwear when I have to abandon the ship.
Well, it's not afterwards. It's when your pants are full of poop that you might want to change them.
It'll probably be your friends that do it first.
Yeah. And so you have those things. So what you really want to do, see, in that situation, and this thing hits wherever it's going to hit, and you know, one thing I would do, I always do when I go on a trip like this, and it might crack you up, but when I've taken trips like this, I have an old Israeli gas mask with a brand new cartridge, one for me and one for my wife. And those are in the ditty bag. Because I have studied quite a few of these ship fire incidents, and, you know, people die from inhaling toxic fumes. And that's a real problem. So
everything's toxic.
Everything's toxic. Now, if you can't, you know, if a gas mask is a little expensive, don't worry about it. You can get an industrial mask that's just for your mouth, and at a hardware store, that's going to be $20, $30. All right? And then the other thing you want to have is, you know, some swim goggles. You know, you're going to be, think about it, you're going to be going, and you're going to the Bahamas, so you're going to, snorkel, right?
Snorkel.
Right. Well, if you're going to snorkel.
That's my main reason to go.
That's right. I'm with you. I love snorkeling. My wife and I, it's our favorite thing to do, you know. And, you know, the very first time we did it together, we had a lot of fun until my wife sat on a green turtle and thought it was a rock. It was like, whoa, that was a hysterical moment. But,
oh, boy. I hope there's still green turtles around there so I can see that.
Well, they've got her name and number, you know, so we're careful. Those turtles really band together, boy, I'll tell you. But here you are, you know, you got your snorkeling mask. Well, that snorkeling mask is really going to be great because you could have dust, ash, smoke, all kinds of stuff. So you got to keep your eyes clear. So you have a mask, you have your snorkeling, you can do that, you know, and you got the snorkel. You want to keep that with you. So you have that little ditty bag, all right? And the mask and the snorkel are always in the ditty bag. Because worst comes to worst, you find yourself in the water and, you know, and you're treading water to land if you're anywhere near land, or at least waiting for helicopters, hopefully, to show up, or some other rescue vehicles. You can just simply, you know, you can go with the snorkel on the surface for quite a long time.
Well, that's a very optimistic view, considering the situation that we are considering with Elanine coming closer to Earth.
It is.
What do you think?
Well, the one thing is, everything we're theorizing is just that. It's theory. Hopeful-wise, none of this happens. That thing flies through our little solar system and keeps on going. We have no effects, and life goes on, and you had one heck of a good time in the Bahamas.
That sounds very good.
That sounds good for all of us.
I like to think so.
That's it. And you know something, Rosa?
Yes, Rosa.
My belief has always been, you know, we don't have, I don't know about you, but I don't have the price of a, you know, luxury condominium survival bunker 2 miles underground. I don't know if you do.
Me either.
Okay.
And I don't think I would like to go underground with a bunch of people there I really probably not going to like.
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Right.
To
Absolutely.
survive.
But the
I don't
point
think
here,
so.
but the point here is, it's not the big things you do. It's enough of the little things that can make a big difference.
Mhm.
And
know.
so the most important thing you do is situational awareness. You do your lifeboat
Right.
drill, you rehearse it, quietly by yourself, you know your escape routes, you got a ditty bag, you're doing all of these things, and you can do everything I've talked about, you can do in the first few hours after you're at sea, after your first lifeboat drill, right?
Right.
And then after that, yo, baby, tequila shooters and party down. Have a good time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Have
I think,
a marvelous time.
I think that's a good idea because I hate to miss that trip.
Mm.
And I have friends coming from California to go to Miami to go on that trip, and I don't want to be behind. I mean, I want to go alone. And as I said, this is one of the lives.
Well,
alive.
do it. Take a little time. Don't talk about this if the other people in your party don't want to talk about it, don't evangelize it. That's the first thing.
No,
when you watch my video, 5 Stages of Catastrophism, you're going to understand that, but you'll also understand how to deal with them
I see.
when the guacamole hits the fan. You do your ditty bag.
I like that
you
with
do
the
your
guacamole.
drills. Yeah, there you go. And there you are. You're going to have yourself a fabulous time. So when you get back from your vacation, come back and tell us how it worked out.
Okay. I must say something to you both. I go to bed every night with you guys. I listen to you guys when I'll go to sleep because I download it in my iPod, and that's the time of the night where I can listen and I can go back and forth, and you guys are the best. I really enjoy it. And the music, you also play Miller, the Moonlight Serenade. Absolutely wonderful. He brought back beautiful memories.
All right.
You guys are really making a really good thing for us, even if you guys talk about literally catastrophes, but it's okay.
Okay.
Well, we just try to make you aware. That's all, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. I think it's always better to know, not to know. I want to know. I don't want to be sitting ignorant in the dark. I want to know what's going on.
And that takes a lot of guts. I've got to respect that a lot.
It does.
Well,
but in the meantime, Rosa,
take
care of your business, but have a great time.
Thank you.
And don't spill your drink.
I'll call you guys back. Okay.
All right. Terrific. Call us back. We're glad we helped for you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. And now, coming back, we have a question from the virtual chat room. Susan threw to us. This is from Milton. And, God, I mean, this is like a frying pan or the fire question. Which is safer to go to, Missouri or Arkansas?
Well, that's a couple great choices. Do you want to go to hell or purgatory?
Is it anything like paradise?
No.
No. By the
I
way,
don't know.
all I got to say is for all of you, terrorists out there, may all of your virgins in paradise have chronic yeast infections. But anyway, I mean, if it's between Missouri or Arkansas, I mean, that's a tough one.
It would depend where.
It really
I don't think I'd be real close to the Mississippi River.
No. And I mean,
and head down toward the Ozarks. I guess that's the best shot.
Yeah. Then the south end of the Ozarks, I think that's a good area there. Missouri in general, I just don't see. I don't know. I mean, are there any of the areas in Missouri that you feel good about?
Not me.
Yeah, same here. I think in Arkansas you can do better.
Yes, I think so too.
I guess the answer to that question is Arkansas. All right, so now let's get back to, we were talking about all of the nasty stuff that happens around 9/11, but as we covered in our last show, on the 26th, LNN comes to its closest point to the Earth. And it was interesting. NASA had a chat room that was talking about LNN, and then someone in the chat room put a very, very close distance for the flyby, and after that the chat room was closed. Let's look at September 26th. What are you seeing there, Ed?
Well, I did notice that there's been late information that they're saying that might change a little bit by a day or two because of the comet speeding up, maybe more than they thought. But we're still going to be in the same area, within a couple of days.
Right.
It was interesting that the buzz room had most of the people that posted on there were NASA people. And somebody posted that they figured it all out, and the orbit brought it at, if I remember correctly, 0.0004 AU, which worked out to about, I think, 35,000 miles from Earth.
Okay, give people a reference. What else is at 35,000 miles?
We got satellites higher than that.
You're talking geosynchronous orbit.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's in space terms 35,000 miles. As far as drawing out an orbit, now you're not saying, well, Earth does have gravity, things can happen, solar wind, whatever. In space, 35,000 miles is a direct hit.
Yeah. Now, if this comet, the coma has already lit up to the size of the diameter of Jupiter. So, we look back at 2007, Holmes expanded to the size of the diameter of the sun.
And it was supposedly, basically, the core of this comet was supposed to be about exactly the same between the two of them. So I would think that LNN has every bit as much potential to do that and more than Holmes did. When it does come between us and the sun, like I say, it's going to be 25 million, 28 million miles away, whatever. A lot of bad things can happen. I don't know how much juice it'll have left, but if it has any left, we'll find out about it then.
So
then it'll short to Earth.
Better. In other words, the sooner it pops, if this thing really expends a lot of energy around the 9/11 time frame, let's say in the week before, maybe the week after, definitely a week to 10 days before it comes to its closest distance to the Earth. Is it really going to make that much difference if it has a big pop at those distances, whether it's closer to the sun than it is closer to us?
I want it to pop as far away from us as possible.
Yeah.
If it pops tomorrow, that's A-OK by me. That increases our chances of survival. As I was saying, it would probably discharge several times according to distance from an opposite polarity object like the sun. When it gets as close to us as it will, if it has any charge left, and if Earth is of a polarity that is opposite, it will discharge whatever it has left to us. That'll jump to 28 million miles. That could not be a happy situation.
Yeah. Now, here's another question. It's like if we have a CME that's coming at us, if it's CME that is going into the southern orientation, that's ones we worry about, as versus to the ones going to a northern orientation. If they come in with a southern orientation, then they really pound the heck out of us.
Yes.
Do you think that kind of that analysis would also apply to an outburst of comet LNN that would have catastrophic results for us?
Well, that could create several possibilities. One is naturally the solar excitement could just throw out all kinds of plasma torus, which we don't really want, because then plasma would be capable of carrying current and would make it easier for it to discharge on the Earth. So yeah, either way, a CME works against us. Unfortunately, the solar activity at that point in time is probably going to be quite heavy.
Okay. Well, describe to us what heavy would be. I mean, you know, give people something visual that they can work with here.
I don't like to be the harbinger of bad tidings, but
Do it.
radiation poisoning is always a possibility if you survive the bursts. The geomagnetic, I know there's been some studies done about human behavior, and in an increased magnetic field, the human mind doesn't quite work so well. Sort of like drinking a bottle of scotch, I guess, but
well, only if it's the Walgreens best. But
well, it's easier to get the scotch.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the geomagnetic effects even might make us all, you know, like go brain dead for all I know. Well, I might be halfway there already. So all of those scenarios are not good. None of those are good when we have it between us and the sun, unless it's just a silly little comet.
Yeah, unless it's a silly little comet.
Or what the word they used, wimpy?
Yeah.
Wimpy.
Some kind of wimpy. Well, for the folks out there, I mean, we've got about 10 minutes left in the show. In terms of preparation, you know, people are going to wonder, well, if we're going to have effects of this, and let's really talk about this as blue Kachina and red Kachina. I mean, if what we're talking about happens, and keep in mind, so far we've been on the money. In the last show, you were talking about this with an outbursting, and we had all kinds of flack from people who thought they knew better, and you were right, Ed. Ed Douglas got it right. Now,
I didn't mean to.
I know. Well, it's not something we want to be right. I mean, we really don't. We really don't. This is not a topic you want to be right about, but it is a topic you have to deal with honestly. Correct. So we have a blue Kachina situation, and how long that event could happen, and then the direct consequences of that, and where it would leave people in terms of the next major event, which would then be the red Kachina, or that would be the Planet X flyby, which, you know, a lot of people are seeing that within about a 1-year time frame after the blue Kachina. Let's look at that blue Kachina event, what people can do to prepare for that, and then after that, let's talk about what they're going to have to do after the blue Kachina in preparation for the red Kachina.
Okay. Well, with everything that's going on right now, it's funny how it all ties together. The preparations are almost the same, just for what's going on around the planet right now. Most of the grain and food growing areas on this planet have either been flooded or burnt, snowed, frozen. In other words, the food production of the planet has dropped off drastically. Unfortunately, the population hasn't. And supply and demand, there's going to be less supply and more demand. Storing up on food and water and any kind of goods along that way is not a bad idea, whether we have a comet coming or not.
Well, it's always a good idea. It's always something that I have always been asking people to do, and more so as of late. I mean, I'm watching what's happening with the economy and with finances, and the greed is good form of capitalism is sucking up and roasting an egg here. We're looking at a situation where the U.S. has just been downgraded by Standard & Poor's. Yeah, it's like, boy, Standard & Poor's, they created the crisis with, fraudulently putting AAA ratings on garbage investments, and then they turn around and they do this. I mean, if there's an agency that does more to hurt people when they're down, that's S&P. But the fact is we do have dysfunctional government, and that's just the way it is.
And we have rioting going on.
There's rioting,
in Europe
I think,
right now.
I look at a lot of this, the insanity in the world that we see, political and so forth, and it's all these rising tensions. I think we're already being affected by what's happening in our solar system.
Well, I know that's when I bring in my other part, which is the Schumann resonance, which is the resonant frequency of the planet, how it has risen from 8 hertz up to 12.5 hertz. Our brains were used to working at 8 cycles per second. Now they're being asked to work at basically almost 13 cycles per second. That's a 50% increase, and obviously from what's going on around the planet, there's a lot of people out there that can't handle it.
Yeah, yeah, and so the insanity is increasing. And so for the listeners out there, it really comes down to, you know, if you're just an average schmo like us, what do you do? And, you know, my thinking on it is right now, the dollar still has buying power. I don't see that being a lasting situation, particularly, and you were right about when you're talking about losing all this food production. I mean, in Texas right now, it is really ugly. I mean, these ranchers, there's no water, there's nothing to feed their herds, and the slaughterhouses are running from can to can.
I looked at their weather report and forecast for the future, and there's no relief in sight. And poor people down there are getting cooked.
They're getting cooked. I mean, but their crops are getting cooked. We're looking at the wheat basket of the country, the bread basket of the country. Has just been cooked. And we're going to see ramifications on this in terms of how this affects the supply chain. And we are going to start seeing, I mean, I think that in the fall, we're going to start seeing grocery prices really escalate. I mean, we've been seeing them all year.
Well, they've already doubled in many cases.
That's right. You know, my wife is a consummate shopper. I mean, she's a shopper's shopper. And it just, you know, she comes back and says, my God, you know, things that I could buy for X are now 2X. And it's almost like having a jeweler's markup on all this stuff. But while people still have some buying power, and I know in times like this, it is really difficult to set the money aside. It's ungodly difficult to set the money aside. But, you know, folks, if you go to a box store like Walmart, Costco, I don't care where you shop, and they got a 10-pound sack of beans or a 25-pound sack of beans. For what you could buy a 25-pound sack of beans today, once everything starts clipping, you'll be lucky to get a pound of beans for that much money. And your wages are any. If they are, that's right, there are. Now, a couple of quick things Susan tossed in from the room, and this is interesting. While we've been on the air, there was a major quake.
Oh, boy.
There was a 5.7 quake in Pakistan. You know, again, we're having these big shakers. We got a message from Boris in San Paulo, Boris Artemenko. He said, we had a 4-hour blackout in most of the city after the fast passage of an electric storm.
Wow.
You know, this is something, folks, you're going to start seeing more and more of electric, you know, the violent storms taking down utilities.
Well, Boris, I know his area there. He's already used to surviving calamities down there. Just another one to have to get through. Yeah, and we have one from Carlos Pierce, and he said the upcoming planetary alignment that will occur August 17th with Venus opposite the Sun, Mercury, and Earth with Ellen at 90 degrees. With that alignment, do you see anything, you know, do you see there's a possibility.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some real heavy electrical theory. It's sort of called a T-square alignment. It's a possibility of some damage and some electrical event, but it's just a possibility. I would think the alignment of Earth with the other planets would be more conducive to damage than where the comet will be at that time. Yeah, got it. One thing that came in, Susan told us there was just a 4.2 in Baja in her area. Bill threw a note in, and for those of you buying supplies, and it's a really great suggestion, Oriental markets to buy rice, and you can find them in most cities, large cities.
you know, you can get a 50-pound sack of rice for about $20 or so. So those are, you know, great sources of getting some basic staples, and that's going to be real important. You know, it's one thing that you're not going to eat well. It's another thing that you're not going to eat at all. But there's other things you also want to set aside, folks. You know, eye drops, toothpaste, toothbrushes,
medical supplies.
Medical supplies. You know, it's really something, you know, take some time to do it. When we wrote Planet X Forecast and 2012 Survival Guide, we had a lot of suggestions there for scoop packs, how to stage and cache your supplies, how to get yourself organized with that. You can get the book on Amazon on a Kindle. It's going to be pretty inexpensive. And now, folks, is the time. And I know you've all heard me go on and on and on and always saying, you know, for the last few months, get out and do it. But really, folks, I mean, the price of gold is through the roof. Europe, U.S., all of the economies are in a world of hurt. And if you don't get your supplies now, before the huge inflation that's going to happen later this year comes, you're in a bad situation. Anyway, Phil came to me and he said, look, here's what's happening. You're getting hit. I asked him, I said, so who are they? He said, it doesn't matter who they are. He says, there's all kinds of interests, whether they're governments or elites or corporations, and this is just routine business for them. This is what they're going to do. And the next step was, he said, you know, you've got to start tracking it down, see who's hitting you, but most importantly, don't take it personally. It's like they say in the movies, it's just business. And that's what you have to do. You don't take it personally like Dutch did. You just simply say, hey, this is the life I chose. I decided to do this. I decided to have a radio show, or I decided to have a YouTube channel, and I decided to tell truth. Well, there are people that don't want you to do that. People have secrets. And a lot of times there's very ugly secrets and very sinister secrets. And you don't know when you're inadvertently going to step on one of them like a landmine. And then boom. So knowing who they are is pointless. You're dealing with their contractors, their minions, whoever they have hired to go out and slam you and destroy you so as to shut you up. And you're not going to understand who they are, and you probably never will. But you can deal with the behaviors of the people that are hitting on you. That is the pure genius of what Sweeney wrote. This was something else, someone else who understood what was happening to me, sent me the information. When I read these two articles, after about 6 months, about 4 months of really getting kicked in the tatas, I was sitting there going, my God. Yeah, they did that, they did that, they did that, they did the other thing, they did this other thing, and it's like all the dots are connecting. And what Philip told me, my guest, and he said, look, you're dealing with people who personality-wise are, their personalities are pretty much like petty retail clerks, all right? And they can be really vicious and short-sighted and mean with you. But in the final analysis, it's business for them. There's nothing personal. This is how they pay their child support, all right? So they went in and they really, really clobbered him. But I used the disinformation playbook with great success. And for those of you who are following Dutch, one thing I never do is I allow comments on my videos, because initially, you know, if you're moderating, it's a lot of work to do it. But after a while, it's just forget it. Just forget the comments, because that's where the disinformation pukes like to hit you. But there's another one in there, another link. And first off, you read that, the disinformation playbook. And anyone who reads that and then you look and see what's happening to Dutch and how Dutch is responding to it is going to be amazingly clear to you as to what's really going on. Now, there's another link there, 100th Monkey. Now, this is something that is a response to anybody goes, well, how can we make a difference? There's not enough of us. Not so. If you read The 100th Monkey, critical mass is a low number thing. You know, earlier when we did our little calculations, what was it, Bill? What was his core audience?
About 980,000 people.
Okay, 980,000 people. Do you think out of 980,000 people, 98 people would give a damn and go to bat for the guy?
I would certainly hope so.
So would I. Even if it's only a fourth of that, it is a huge force to be dealt with. And so when you reach out to your audience, the people that like your work, what you do is you think about getting that 100th monkey. Not about building an army of 10,000 people to right the wrongs. What you need is a 100th monkey, and you're shooting for that. It makes a huge difference. And I can tell you, when all is said and done, you can deal with it. Now, is there a situation where you can use these techniques to keep moving forward and reporting your work truthfully and never be bothered by the disinformation pukes? No, they're like cockroaches. They do their best work at night. They like filth. And, they'll be around long after we're gone. You just can't kill them all. So don't bother with it. Again, don't take it personal. Just accept the fact. This is how it is. This is the life. And so if Dutch had been looking to the people that support him, and I'm talking about all the folks that are just on his channel, all right, and reaching out to them and saying, I need your help. If you want this information, you need to help me. He's not doing that. Big mistake. If you were doing that, shooting for the 100th monkey, and then going out and just giving a link to Sweeney's articles, and then he can turn it around. And I will tell you, a real effective tool is you turn yourself into a tar baby. So for those of you out there running a YouTube channel, how do you become a YouTube tar baby? Well, what you do is that you create awareness of what these people are actually doing, these disinformation operatives. You use Sweeney's articles, you put up videos, you put up audios, and then you inoculate yourself. Because now you're a harder target to hit. If they are going to go, it's the old, kids in a schoolyard thing, and oh, Billy's going to get an ass whooping, the bully's going to get him. Everyone's got to go see Billy get an ass whooping. All right? Well, if Billy is getting an ass whooping, at the same time, everyone is understanding who the bully really is and how much of a schmuck he is, it doesn't work too good for the bully. It's kind of counterproductive. It's much better when the guy who's getting picked on is doing like Dutch is, oh, please, can we all just get along and love one another and have a good time and just get over this and go beyond? No, what does the bully do? Pow! In the face. That's it. You're down. It's the count. And everyone's going, hey, you shouldn't have begged the bully. So you don't do that. You don't beg. You get out with your friends. You build a counterforce. And you accept the fact that it's not going to go away. All right? Disinformation cockroaches are like urinary tract infections. Once you've had your first one, it's much easier to get them after that. Ask anyone who's ever had one. So that's the point here, folks. For those of you out there that want to try and help this guy, because I'll tell you what, if he doesn't get some help, if some of the people following his work don't get off their tuchus with this I'm not involved nonsense, and they go, hey, this is my planet too, I got a right to know, and I'm going to go take it to these schmoes. Then what you're doing is you're haunting his videos, looking in the comments, and you're taking and responding to these schmucks using the exact tactics that Sweeney puts in those articles. And so those links are up there. And I'll tell you, folks, if you want the information Dutch is doing, or anyone else like Dutch is doing, and it's important enough for you to have this access to the information. And when you see these sources of information being targeted the way Dutch is being targeted, you have to decide, are you going to make a difference or aren't you? And that, to me, is the bottom line. Bill, you got any last thoughts on it?
Not really, Marshall. I think you've covered just about everything. I think you've done a fine job of telling people what's going on. And I'll just say that we really need to get in there and we really need to support Dutch because he's giving us some extremely valuable information.
That's right. So
you know, I
once
don't know
again,
what it is about the guy or how he figures out what he does, but he's a natural at doing it, and I hate to see the guy destroyed like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's got a heck of a nose for the news. A heck of a nose for the news.
He does it, man.
And he brings a good energy. I like his reporting. He's just dealing with nasty people he's never come across before, and man, he's tucking tail and running. So with that, again, folks, it's on yowza.com, YOWUSA.com. All you have to do is search for the article, the Disinformation Playbook, and to search for the article, The 100th Monkey. And for those of you that want to make a difference, read it, and then just go do your thing alone. Or better yet, get together with some other folks and tag team those disinfo pukes. You can really, really mess them up so easily if you do. Now, with that, let's get into the latest and breaking news on Comet Elenin, Planet X, and other topics. And for that, let's bring Ed in.
Hello.
Hey, Ed. Well, thanks for hanging through that 40 minutes.
Well, let me say I enjoy Dutch's work. He does good work.
He does. He does. You know, and it was really, you know, he promised he'd be on the show tonight. And, of course, once I saw him getting hammered and the way he was responding to it, I knew that, you know, he was going to run from that too. So, yeah, it would have been nice if Dutch had just simply sent us an email saying, I'm canceling. But he didn't. You know, he's just off in his shell. But you're right. The work is excellent. Excellent. And I particularly liked the reporting he was doing on Pisgah Crater and also that trench that's off of Puerto Rico. I've been following that ever since, and that thing is really, really active. So with that in mind, Ed, we've had a change of state on Comet Elenin that was not being discussed earlier on. I mean, I can't even remember from before, where now it is brightened, and as I recall, well, the last thing I read on it, I think the coma now is the size of the planet Jupiter, right?
It looks big.
That's good. I love it, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, it's caught me by surprise because I was sort of coming out with some theorization, and next thing I know, it's doing what I said it might do. And I didn't really want it to do that. I am disappointed in NASA.